Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining another session of Hablemos. Today, I have a special guest. My name is Carolina Veira, and I'm your host for the day where we have conversations about inclusion, leadership, and purpose. Today, I have a wonderful leader in our community, especially here in Florida. However, she is national. She goes all out. She knows everyone. And this beautiful lady. Her name is Sandra Noemi Torres, and she's the founder of UnitedLatinas. But she wears many, many hats, like many powerful women that I know. So she'll be sharing more about her experience as a marketing, as the owner of a marketing agency. So Sandra, how are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Caro. This is amazing. I love this platform.
Woo, yes. And I'm super excited to have you. I'm excited to be sharing the wonderful information about the conference that you're going to be hosting, but most importantly, your life, Sandra, because you are, like I mentioned, a powerhouse. You never stop. I know that sounds familiar because we always talk about never having a moment, always thinking of new things to do. So I'm encouraged by your passion and your story, and I love for people to get to know you better. So please go ahead and share more about you. Who's Sandra? What's her heritage? Where does Sandra come from? And what is she currently doing?
All right. Wow. Thank you so much. Soy Boricua. Nací en Puerto Rico, Ponce, in case you're wondering.
Woo!
I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm definitely a Jersey girl. I know we're in Florida now, but I'm a Jersey girl at heart. As far as like who I am, gosh, okay, so this is kind of feeds up onto a lot of the conversations that we have about identity and the workplace and our professions, right? Because most people are just is easy to default to say this is what I do for a living, but who is it that we are at our core, and what are the lessons that we've learned throughout life, right? Because when we think about self-worth, we tend to measure ourselves by where we are positioned in the workforce, as opposed to who we are as individuals. So when I think about who I am, besides being a Puerto Riqueña who grew up in New Jersey, in central New Jersey, I think I hold a lot of defining moments of who I am with my upbringing, right? I was the youngest of five children. I was an early mom. I gave birth to my son at 19 years old. Out of wedlock. Again, I thought I was a, stigma. I was told even at that age, that being 19, that gosh, you're going to be a statistic, right? I'm a Latina. I gave birth out of wedlock. I'm going to be a statistic, and that was something that always bothered me. Like I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm going to prove these numbers wrong. Like, why is it that because I'm a Latina, my destiny is okay? You're going to be a statistic of the system because that's about the capacity that we have as a
Right.
community, and that has always bothered me. Spiritually, like growing up, I grew up in a Pentecostal church, which is very strict. No pants, no makeup, act right, be in your corner. And a lot of that, I think, was embedded into part of who I ultimately am, right? I grew up in Pentecostal church. There was a lot of things within that church that didn't align with me. I
Mm.
remember being this image is so clear in my head. I was like 6 or 7 years old, and one of the elders in the church came to me and said, you are never going to make it into the kingdom of God because your mother never baptized you. And my mother was back and forth from Puerto Rico to New Jersey at that time. Like, I had two siblings that were born there, and the rest of us were born here, where I was born over there. But and I'm like, well, that's not my fault. Why is that was like the beginning of like, well, is my self-worth and my,
Based on everybody else's
yeah, like,
actions. Yeah.
yeah, like I thought it was so like ridiculous that she even said that to me. And I remember being 6 or 7 years old and thinking to myself, you don't know God.
Oh my
You
God, I
don't know
love it.
God.
You were sassy since you were 5, 6 years old, but for the right reasons. I love it.
Yeah, I knew that there was something about us spiritually that was far superior than the color of our skin.
Love it.
So that idea was always embedded into me, and then my mother said, okay, Pentecostal church. I told my mother, I'm like, I'm not going to that church again. This woman doesn't know what she's talking about. And then she put
Oh,
me
it
in.
was a woman.
Yes, it was a woman. It was a woman, and which was even more devastating to hear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because
um
it's somebody that you should relate to, right? That you look up to. It's a woman, and
yeah.
she's leading you, guiding you. Wow.
Yeah. So that made me question the right there and then and there, because I was one of the children that always like raised their hand to read the Bible. The words in scripture were always like stimulating. Oh, we're talking about God. I
Hmm.
want to read it. I want to read it. So I was the reader in Sunday school. I was the one that raised my hand. So then when she said that, I was so disappointed and
Oh.
thinking, wow, this is far deeper. So my mother said, okay, you don't want to go to Pentecostal church. I'll put you in CCD classes. I think I lasted 3 classes before I dropped out because I was like the rebel in the class. I'm like, okay, I have to kneel a certain way. I have to do things a certain way to be valued. Right. And I think culturally within the Latino community, this is a lot of
Mm.
baggage that we hold on to that is like unspoken about. Right. We don't talk about these things because we just kind of consume them and they
Mm.
become part of us in some way. We make decisions based on that. But I didn't agree a lot with a lot of the things. I mean, don't measure my worth on my ability to be or
Kneel down.
act a particular way.
Yeah.
So after that, just school and life, and then I had my son at 19, and at that point, it's funny because in the book that I wrote, I talk about like my brother was in and out of jail his whole life, right? I grew up in that environment, and then he would come, he would go into jail, and then he was a Muslim, at one point for many years. My brother was a Muslim. He studied the Jewish religion for a long time. That was first. He would come out with the Star of David and start talking about those things, and then he would go back, and then he came back, and he was a Muslim for many years. That was the cycle of my brother before he passed in '98. He was 31 years old when he passed. But we've always had conversations on the idea of what is the meaning of life, right? How all of these topics, and then a year after I lost my brother, my mother
Mm.
was diagnosed with full blown Alzheimer's. So I was about 21 years old at that time, where I just had my son. My mother loved my son. He was,
How old was your mom?
she was 53 when she was
Wow, so
diagnosed.
young.
Yeah, yeah. And that, when we think about who we are, like for a long time and for many years, I would start my story with, well, I lost my mother to
Mm.
Alzheimer's, because that defined me so much. I was so hurt, so broken, so much
Mm.
trauma that had happened to me throughout that time that I held on to it. I held on to it because I didn't, it became comfort. I didn't know what else to hold on to. I didn't have my mother to call. I have 3 older sisters, and my brother was the oldest. He had passed, but they were all living their own lives. So being
Yeah.
the youngest, in a community that says, I was just, I just defined myself as the loss that I had gone through, right? And now being a single mom and having to build a career and having to be challenged by people that would say, this is your place in life. You're a Latina, you're in an underserved community, therefore you are going to be a statistic, you're going to end up in the system. And I rebelled against that, just like I rebelled against the church, for telling me I'm
Hmm.
worth less than who I was. And I went on, and I just kind of like did my thing. I had to support my son, I had my own place, I did everything. And that really contributed to a lot of me. Even in the workforce, I was hired as a director of marketing. I was managing we had 70 stores up and down in the East Coast, and so I was managing
Wow.
the stores. And through that process, I just like I learned the industry of marketing and messaging and communications, and really building relationships with your customer base and really speaking to them. I was managing direct mail pieces across the country. I
Mm.
mean, I would have vendors call me and say, Sandra, I think it's time you pay that $300,000 invoice that I sent you last month. They're like, okay, I'll go get a check for you. We were spending money like crazy, because what I understood was through my loss and my experience, I started to understand the fact that how we are all connected and how we
Mm.
all think. because I was not thinking that I was isolated in my own suffering and in my own trauma. I understood that the person that's at home that's getting a piece of mail, they're going through some trauma. The people that we're marketing to, they're going through some trauma. And when we understand, and it's one of the things I always spoke about, is look around. In every single direction, you're gonna find someone that's suffering to the degree, if not more, that you are. So that's why we have to come together and we have to embrace each other, and we have to really understand that we are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. We are in this together.
Right.
And this measurement of life that says you are worth enough, if you aspire to this thing, well, we're worthy as it is, and that is what causes people to feel less worthy or incapable of doing and achieving the things that they want in life. So
and how important, to your point, how important it is what we say to everyone, not only to ourselves, because what we tell ourselves, it's monumental, right? It defines who we are too.
Yeah.
But what is coming out of us, and what are we telling others about themselves, about everything, about life, and the impact that words can have. And it relates to what your job, I mean, what you do in the marketing business, in the marketing world, but everything, even with UnitedLatinas.
Yes. Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I started that organization. When I was in corporate America, I was a buyer for the company that was a director of marketing. I wore many hats there too. I was like the CEO's right-hand woman. Yeah, I was the right-hand woman is what I was known as, because I would wear many hats and I knew the industry, right? And that's one of the things when we think about how do we grow as leaders, is really be able to embed yourself and really understand and commit to understanding the parts that you don't know. But I had the receptionist that was there. She was the first person that I ever mentored. And she was a receptionist. She didn't graduate from college. She was going to get her GED through that time. She was a Latina, out of wedlock. She had a kid, kind of similar story. And I taught her how to negotiate and how to buy, and got her into the position so that she replaced that position of mine. And, and she kept to this day, like she is a boss. She knows how to negotiate. She knows, because there are skills that you acquire, and hopefully you get to be around good individuals and good leadership that really, if they don't, that you learn something from, right? We have to be eager to learn. And that's kind of like the majority of the books that I have around me. It's like, commit yourself to personal development, right? Because that's the only way that we can grow. So like, even the messaging that I would speak to her about getting her into that position is really understand your value is far, just because you don't have a GED, because this is one of the things that she thought, I don't have a GED, I'm worth less. I am worth less, and this was what she truly believed, and so it's really, how can we help each other get out of that mindset? Because value is not determined based on what your material aspirations or where you are in life. A homeless man is just as worthy as you. He's got something he's dealing with, and he's still connected to the fabric of life, the spiritual reality that we all thrive in, right? But unfortunately, we focus on the material. But we feel better when we think about ourselves in the spiritual realm and in spiritual avenues.
And Sandra, I mean, everything that you're saying is so powerful. And we were having a discussion as well before we started the conversation live. And you and I, we understand each other based on the fact that we do many things. We wear many hats. We try to do a lot of things. And sometimes that's the question. Is it because I like it? Is it because I enjoy it? I know I love it, but I know I'm very well aware that it takes a toll on you, right? And it takes a toll in everyone. And some people measure success based on how many cars they have, or the title, or how much money they're making. Some others, it's a combination of everything. And some others, it's something completely different. In your own, based on your perspective, based on what you've learned, based on what you share with the world, how do we find the right balance, and does it even exist?
That is an interesting question. I mean, I think the right balance is, I mean, and this is not perpetual, right? When we think we find what makes you happy, find what lifts you up. And of course, there are moments when it's not always like that. Life is ebb and flows, right? It's never like, okay, I'm happy, that's it, I'm happy every single day for the rest of my life, right? It doesn't unfortunately work out that way. It is up to us to do the work that continuously puts us in those positions. So I think when it comes to those matters, it is about what is really important to you, right? And many people, this is a tough question for people to answer, right? When we're so inundated with the distractions of our current environment today, right? So many people have a hard time even identifying what is your purpose, what
Mm-hmm.
is your reason for being here. How do you determine that? What, how do I know what makes me happy? I don't know. These 100 things all make me happy, which is that's another um, subject matter as well, right? How do we find that thing that puts us in our flow? And that's kind of what I talk a lot about, is find that thing that puts you in your flow, that you can do effortlessly, that you can do, without any of these, oh, I got to get that done kind of mindset. But when you find something that you feel completely fulfilled, regardless of what anybody else thinks, and that's a level of self-awareness, right? Because there's not going to come a point where you get told that. You have to decide, you know what, this is my life, this is my opportunity, and the life that I create is mine to create, and I get to decide what is and feels good to me, what is important to me, what feels good to me, and how do I thrive, and measure myself by those standards, by no one else's standards but my own, by the ones that I have for myself. And that is, am I happy here? Do I feel joy when I do this? Do I feel I'm in the process of serving others through this? And am I okay with that? Am I okay if I have a yacht, or if I'm okay if I just kind of, where is your balance, right? We tend to think that success is, you got all these amazing things, you live in the big house, and that may be for some, right? But some people just want a very simple life, living off the grid, being able to grow your own food. That brings a sense of fulfillment to people, and that you cannot put a price tag on that. You cannot tell someone, oh, my success, I define it by how big my house is. You may define it by how big your heart is, how much you're giving to this. Mother Teresa was never rich, but she had a sense of fulfillment through her servitude.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's up to us to define what that is for us, and we should have no shame in that game.
Yeah, because it's about our sanity, right? Our mental health as well. And those are topics that we don't talk too much. We don't talk often about, and we have to. Now I see more and more people being more open to it, but traditionally it's like a taboo. It's, you don't talk about struggling, and you don't talk about failure. You don't talk about, you have to be the best. That's
Good.
it. I mean, there's no other option. You can, if you suffer in silence. You close the doors, you get in bed, and you cover you, and it's all calladito. And the more we grow, and the more you're exposed to other people, and like you said, to knowledge and to education, you understand, no, that's why we create these networks of support. That's why we relate to others. That's why we talk to other people, because we need that support. And that's what you've created with United Latinas. Tell us more about what the organization is about. What's your purpose with the organization? And furthermore, what's the new conference that you're going to be hosting soon?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so that's kind of what I shared is kind of the basis of why I started it, right? Seeing Latinas in the office that just didn't have that self belief, and even myself when I was, I came from management, and then I was appointed as a director of marketing for all of this money that I was now responsible to manage, and I looked on the internet for, okay, well, who are Latinas that I can look up to, that can guide me. I was 22 at 23 years old at that time. Like, how can I find mentorship? And that always stuck with me, the idea that, we as a community don't really have that easily accessible for ourselves. So when I started United Latinas, that was the very core foundation. We need a network to make sure that Latinas are encouraged to find networks, right? Be able to network and communicate with others, be as much as, people say, well, I'm not extroverted. Well, I'm very introverted. You like, people like, oh, you're always out there. You could talk to anybody. I can work a room. But at the core of my soul, I feel like I'm very introverted. I like being
It
by
doesn't
myself.
show. It doesn't show.
But it's true. But that's the thing, right? Because we can be introverted and then be able to handle ourselves professionally in an environment as we should, right? We need to be able to communicate with others, and that the self-worth aspect of it comes into play there, right? Because you won't be able to just come up to a stranger and start a random conversation with somebody if you don't have a little bit of, well, who am I and why am I here? And I have a purpose and a reason to be here. So you establishing those things, and that lacked in the Latina community. I would go to networking events all of the time, 2-3 a week, and this was probably 15 years ago, but like 2-3 a week, and I would be the only Latina in the room, or if there was another brown person, it was a male. It was a male. So the only other Latino was okay. It was a guy. But where are my sisters? Because that's who I wanted to be around. I wanted to be around people that understood me, that understood my culture, that would understand my baggage, that would understand my trauma, because I felt like I had to live up to a specific place to fit in with anyone that wasn't brown. Like, okay, well, how do I measure up my self-worth when our whole lives we were taught this is your box, this is your playground, this is your capacity of what you can reach,
Right.
versus the sky's the limit. You have the potential to be anyone and anything that you want to be. So that's not those words are not said often to the Latina community, the Latino community, the Latinx community as a whole. So when I started United Latinas, it was on that foundation. Initially, I started with, let me bring women together. Let me bring, all of these women together and see how many Latinas come out. So maybe there was one, that would come out, and I would do events for a month. And I'm like, that's it. I'm ready to really put it out there for United Latinas. I want Latinas to come together, because I know there's a lot of other women will come together for networking. They got it. They have it down. And not everyone, claro, but they understand the importance of getting yourself out there to grow your business or to grow any business, where the Latino community was more shy, was more questioning self-worth. So it was just like getting them out there was like, okay, pero se quedaron calladita, right? It was just like, they were just, all right, but who do I talk to? I'll wait for someone to speak to me. That's when I'll start a conversation. So I was very aggressive at that time, being a single mom and having, doing everything on my own. I'm like, no, we gotta talk to people. We gotta build partnerships. We gotta have communications. We gotta see how we can support each other. So United Latinas, on October 2018, we launched our an event in West Palm Beach that was just kind of, let's get everybody together. And we had such an amazing turnout. And that just kind of was like, okay, this is the first of many. And then the rest is sort of history after that. We were doing events month after month, highlighting women, bringing, one of the core things that I speak about within United Latinas is the fact that we are operating in our own silos. Everybody is working themselves on their own solar, like everybody's alone. But what can we do when we put our experiences together? What can we accomplish when we bring those assets together? What can we build? And I think that was at the core. Let's build United Latinas. I want women to feel that we have the potential to grow our own companies, but also what piece, that can we contribute to this bigger picture? Because we shouldn't be working in our own silos. We should have a consistent network of Latinas to go to bounce ideas off of, to like say, should I do this? Or man, what should I charge for this? Or,
Right.
or what are you, like, how do we know those things without having the communication and the community to have those conversations with? So of course, COVID hit. So we went virtual. We were doing in person, we went virtual, and we've been doing these conferences, our Latina Leadership Summit every single March. And now this year we're launching our Hispanic Heritage Month event. Yes, I'm so excited. It is titled "We Are More," because we are more.
I
Because
love we are more. It's powerful. It's powerful. And we are. And it's the more conversations I have with different powerhouse women like yourself, it is about empowering each other. It is about supporting each other. It is about connecting with other women, connecting with other humans, elevating each other. And but the power is in us, and we are everything we need to be and more, right? So it's a beautiful, beautiful name. And what can we expect during the conference?
Yeah, so we can certainly expect a lot of great conversations. I mean, I like to kind of, you know, have difficult conversations, some of like what we're based around this, like what is, our worth. And when we think about leading from the top, right, because this was even when I mentored my first individual, like this was even like, you got to be tough, we have to have tough skin, right? We are a very emotional, I think,
Mm.
community as a whole. We can dive into that a whole lot. But we do a sense of us, right, to fit into this, inclusive, atmosphere in the corporate space. We do have to be tough skinned, and
Yes.
many of us are, but like we really have to gain those skill sets, right, to really be able to handle ourselves in what we consider a man's world, or a not brown world, which it's changing. Obviously, it's been changing for a bit, but it wasn't like that when I initially started, right? There was definitely not a lot of brown people at the top. So this event is going to be talking about a lot of these subjects, leading from the top. How do we do this in an inclusive environment? How do we, start talking about this individualism versus collectivism, mindset of us as a community? Do we climb ourselves, and we're just worried about ourselves, because what's that syndrome that that
Imposter.
imposter syndrome, but that crab in the barrel syndrome, right? There can't be, well, if I'm going for this role,
Oh
there
yeah.
can't be another Latina, because they'll only
Right.
take one, because there's not enough space for all of us, So like
The
that's it.
scarcity mentality that
This
I
exactly.
don't know why, I don't know how, but that chip was implanted in us from thousands of years, I don't know, or so it seems. But yeah, that's what we encounter, and that's what we're doing, to remove that stigma and that barrier from our brains. Yes, keep going.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of those conversations, we also have one thing that we're doing. One of the core mission statements of United Latinas is to make sure that we're amplifying women, right? So we're empowering women, we're bringing them into the community, but we're also amplifying their voices and giving women the opportunity to practice their voice, right? Because some of them
Mm.
may have never given that opportunity to themselves to say.
Practice their voice. What do you mean by that?
So, so many women haven't had that opportunity to say, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I believe in, with everything put aside. What is it? What is it that you are? So, having a platform where women can share their voice, because I believe speaking is a great avenue for really uncovering your message, right?
Mm.
So. Being put, and this is some of the things that I do even in some of my coaching sessions, being put in positions that push you to become that next version of yourself, right? Because our competition isn't everyone else around us. Our competition is ourselves. How can we be better than we were yesterday? So when we think about amplifying women, for us as an organization, we want to put women behind the mic. We want to get women to overcome their deepest fears, because they say public speaking is worse than death to many people. They would rather die than go and do something in front of people, right?
Yeah.
So I believe very strongly that if we can get enough women that are in that position, like I don't want to speak in public, but get them to thinking, because this adds value for them in their professional career.
Right.
This adds value for them as they're networking out there. It adds and builds confidence. So getting as many women behind the mic to share a story or a message, because everyone has one. Everyone has some lessons that they've learned through life, or some message that they have acquired. So I believe it's important. So part of our event is going to feature 6 members that are doing their own talk, that they have their own like mini power talk, that they're going to share their
Oh,
own
wonderful.
message.
I
Yes, not
love that.
because I think it's important that we create the platforms where women can have the space to even screw up, right, without any, like, even just be vulnerable, just be human, because to the conversation earlier, we're judged on so many other parameters aside
Mm.
from that. But when we can overcome and push through fear, we become someone else, and we understand that, wow, that wasn't so bad. All right,
I
it was
love
a little
that.
scary going in, but
Yeah, and we start doing it, and I love that you said give them the space to even screw up, make mistakes, but have that group of women who are still going to be rooting for you and supporting you, because we've all been through that.
yep,
We've all messed up at some point in our lives, and we continue and we will continue to do so. But it's about the experience, it's about learning, it's about improving, it's about getting there. And like what you said, uncover the next Sandra, the next Carolina. How do we get there, right? How do we keep advancing? And it resonates with me. I always say that we're humans in progress. We're just getting better, and that's the taking action component, not just thinking that we know it all and just stay there in that same role or that same position or that same whatever, that same space. It's more about, okay, how can I improve and how can I learn something new, and by that, just becoming a better version of ourselves.
yeah.
And then of that, tell us, share with us about the award ceremony, because you're gonna have, this is the first year that you have awards for women, and how I love the fact that you said that anyone can participate. It's open to anyone interested in joining. How do they apply? What does it take? What are the requirements?
Yeah, so it's our Extraordinary Latinas Awards. So we're giving out 3 awards. One is for a woman that is empowering her community. She's doing it in her own circle. The next is for a woman that's amplifying other women and making sure that they're helping and supporting other women kind of spread their message. And then Connecting Community Award, who is out there trying to really build these partnerships and these resources for women, and really engaging the community as a whole. Those are 3 powerful things we believe are critical components to the next phase of our evolution as a community. Is how are we attributing to the community as a whole? How are we empowering people, highlighting them? How are we helping to amplify them? And how are we connecting with other people? So this is critical, right? Because these are some of the things that we didn't have. I certainly did not have these things in my network as I was coming up in the corporate space. But I think today we have to make sure that we hand down these tools that we have gained to those next generation, and even our generation, right?
Hmm.
Because one of the things with United Latinas is we do gear to a more older community, right? We
Experience.
yes, we're exact. Thank you. And more, that is a much better word. I should have used that word. Older.
Mm.
Age, older is not the word I
No.
experienced. Thank you so much for that.
Experience.
Yes, because when I first started United Latinas, a lot of the women were like, okay, I'm in the reinvention stage. I am like in my 40s or mid 40s, and I'm at this point of life that I'm I left my job I was with for
Right.
15 years, and
I
now
want
I'm
to do
like,
something else,
I want to do
completely
something
different.
else. And that there's some irony in that we don't discover that, or at least our generation, we haven't discovered that the meaning of life is like, okay, we do have to be happy with what we do. We don't learn it till like we're in our 40s, or we're like, oh, I'm midlife. Crap,
Are
am I
you kidding me,
happy?
Sandra? This is not the conversation I was looking. Everything that I thought I was doing right, you're telling me I'm doing wrong. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, it is also about, and by that I think that what you mean is, it's be thankful for what you have, but still look forward to what you want to where you want to be and what you want to become, right?
Absolutely. I mean, gratitude. That was awesome that you just brought it up. Like, gratitude is at the core of everything, right? We can't really move to that next level until we become self-aware enough to know, I have trauma in my life. I've been told some things that maybe have made me feel less than the person that I was. I've been in a community that always looked down on who we are as a people, and that has impacted us to the point where we're understanding that now. But it is up to us to really, you know, become self-aware, to know, like, okay, this is not just me. This is everybody. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's everybody, then we're in this together. Then we have to understand that we have to be there for one another. That we understand that we cannot judge each other by some metric that colonization has taught us to measure by, right? We have to measure each other by what is in our hearts and what are our aspirations. At the same time, being grateful for what we do have, but at the same time, understanding our literal responsibility to our life agreement, to our responsibility to make sure that we are really living this life to the best and to the fullest of our ability. Because if we don't take action on things, if we don't do things because of fear, we will never become the person that we feel we are destined to become. So we have to understand that we have an obligation and a responsibility to do things scared, to do things that we don't always feel comfortable doing, to become the person that we're going to be. And that is how we will evolve and become happier, because we're only, you know what, we're like, oh, I've been through that, or I did that, you know, that there's a sense of like, damn, you
I
know,
made it, right? I made it
I
happen.
did something that was scary, and I pushed through it, and I did it anyway, you know. And that you become things shift, and you become, okay, let me do that more often. Let me do things that
Yeah.
are scary more often, and you become
Better.
someone, yeah, better,
Happier, right? Happier,
happier,
better. You find the
more.
joy in life. Um, Sandra, I can't begin to tell you how powerful this session has been. And I'm telling you, I'm so glad and honor that you stopped by and that you had made the time. And I appreciate you so much. How, when is the conference again? Just as a reminder, how do people sign up? Share that little bit of information before we go.
Yep, they can sign up we're on Eventbrite, but if you go to UnitedLatinas.com, you'll see our event on there. You'll also see the awards on there. If you want to either nominate yourself or nominate someone that you know, you'll have the action steps right through UnitedLatinas.com. The event is on September 28th. It is from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. So
It's
that's
virtual.
It's virtual. This one is a virtual event, because we have a nationwide audience and speakers from all over. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And if anyone has questions for you, how do they find you on Instagram, on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is always the best. LinkedIn.com/in Sandra Torres. And you will find me, and feel free to message me or shoot me anything through there. It would be
A
great.
DM.
Yes.
Perfect. Sandra, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. I know we're going to keep working on some other initiatives, and I'm proud and honored to call you my friend. And I know that I can call you my friend because I can text you anytime and you'll get a response. So I know I'm in. Thank you, God.
Yes.
No, but thank you for your time. I appreciate you so much. Have a wonderful day. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget about the conference. Be there. You have a beautiful group of United Latinas ready to support you and ready to elevate each other. So thank you, Sandra, for everything that you've created.
Thank you, Caro. It was a pleasure.
All right. We'll see you next time.